Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Charmed Season 3, Episode 6, Primrose Empath. The episode in a nutshell is just a reminder of what happens within this episode before we rank it. Alright, so in this episode, we start with Prue having a bit of a toothache and needing to go and get it checked out, while Piper and Leo fight about her introducing him as her doctor friend, because what else would she introduce him as to a mortal? And Phoebe worrying about the fact that Cole has asked her on a date, but that it's only a lunch date and not a dinner date, which she thinks isn't as impressive and means his feelings aren't as strong. As Prue is driving to her dentist appointment, Cole starts to change various signs in construction zones, on the side of a bus, on the side of a building, leading her to where Vinceris, who is introduced as Vince, is basically a reclusive shut-in in a building that is about to be demolished and suffering greatly due to empathy. Prue then goes home. Phoebe and Cole, alongside Leo and Piper, go on a double date. And then Leo basically gives advice on what to do about empaths, like who empaths are and why they have the gifts they do. And Cole gives Prue his card to have Vinceris page him once she has been able to get him out, and then she's sent back to the building to try to convince Vince to leave. Anyways, she ends up casting a spell, and Vinceris, while she's casting the spell, grabs her hand, which allows the empathy to pass from him to her. However, because she is mortal, the empathy, because it is a gift that she is not meant to have, is going to affect her far more quickly than Vinceris, who is an immortal demon that was able to fight it off for longer. Vinceris then goes on a revenge kick and starts leaving a trail that can be followed while he hunts down Father Thomas, who was the one who initially cursed him with empathy, and as a result of that, went a little mad himself because he felt that he had lost his ability to help others by losing his empathy, and is now in a psychiatric ward or psychiatric hospital. We then basically have the double date where Cole offers to split the bill with Leo. However, Piper has to step in because Leo doesn't actually get a salary for what he does. And then, he and Piper kind of fight about how that makes him feel, especially once Prue feels their emotions and basically tells them that Leo is resentful and Piper's in denial. But once they talk it out, they seem to be back into a good place. Cole kind of breaks up with Phoebe, but as he's leaving, Prue is entering after having gone back to the dentist's office, but realized that she was feeling the emotions of a woman with laughing gas and basically left quickly to come home. And she says that Cole is falling in love and she was able to feel it. And then that Phoebe also, her heart's jumping and she's able to feel that. So she sends Phoebe to go after Cole, who arrives at his apartment, and they proceed to the next step of their relationship, which is the physical intimacy part. And Prue, meanwhile, tries to deal with the empathy. Unfortunately, by the next day, she is in the basement, huddled around, trying to fight all of the emotions that she's feeling from all of the other houses in the neighborhood. Piper and Phoebe go back to the building that is meant to be torn down, and Phoebe gets a premonition leading them to Father Thomas. They then go to the psychiatric hospital with Prue, meet Father Thomas, who they then take with them from there back to the manor, while Prue is basically completely breaking down. And at first, Father Thomas, because he doesn't believe he can help people anymore, is very cynical about how Prue's basically done for, how, you know, Viserys is immune to witches' powers and won't allow another spell to work, so he's no longer able to be cursed. But in the end, Father Thomas does go down and talk to Prue, and he essentially convinces her that she can basically feel all of the world's emotions, both good and bad, and channel that into her power to basically make herself pretty much unstoppable, just like Viserys. Prue then comes up the stairs from the basement, faces Viserys in a choreographed martial art fighting routine before eventually she astral projects into Viserys, forcing him to feel what he had been fighting, and he's unable to take it and blows up into a green poof. And that also sends the power of empathy away as well. Unfortunately, that means that Father Thomas does not get it back. However, he says that he doesn't need it back because now he realizes that he's able to help people even if he can't feel empathy. Phoebe then returns to Cole's place, and initially she had seen a packed suitcase. However, obviously, because his plan with Viserys failed, he is still staying, and so they basically say that they're going to stay together for now because he's not leaving anymore. And Prue does eventually get her tooth fixed. And that is where we end the episode. So now that we know what happened within the episode, it's time to rank the episode. We rank on two lists. We rank on our mostly objective ranking list, and then we also rank on our personal ranking list. All right, so we are going to start with our mostly objective rank values, and I highlighted those I felt applied on screen. So we start with our single episode supporting character introductions. We have Viserys, who goes by Vince while he's pretending to be mortal, who is a demon assassin who is pretty much unstoppable, and the only reason he was stopped by Father Thomas was because Father Thomas, who is our second single episode supporting character, cursed him with his gift of empathy, forcing him to feel emotions which, as a demon, he is not able to adequately handle, leaving him pretty much a depressed mess that was afraid to go outside. Sounds about right. And those are 2 points. We then have our multi-season main character growth, which is that this is the first episode in which we see Prue able to be conscious in both of her modes. So basically, after she gets the power boost, she defeats Viserys, and this removes the empathy and therefore removes her power boost. However, I guess she became a little bit closer to her astral projection, which at the start of the episode, she's practicing trying to use her telekinesis while she is in her astral mode in the kitchen, but she fails. And at the end of the episode, she still hasn't used telekinesis in her astral mode. That still isn't a growth that we've seen from her. However, it is the first time that we see Prue conscious in both reality, like her real body and her astral body, conscious at the same time. Up till now, every time Prue is astral projected, her real body has basically gone unconscious wherever she was standing or sitting, so that the astral Prue would then be able to do whatever it needs to do. However, at the end of this episode, when she defeats Viserys, once the empathy is gone, her and her astral selves both come awake, and they nod at each other and smile at each other, which shows growth in the astral projection, just not the growth we were anticipating based on the start of the episode. Still growth though, which is a 4 points, which brings us to 6 points. We then have our main relationship development, which of course is when before Prue is overcome by the empathy, when she's just starting to feel it. She walks past Cole as he's leaving after having semi-broken up with Phoebe. And she is very taken aback by it. She notes how she hasn't felt that way since Andy died, how, it's like spinning into infinity and, that Cole is falling in love. And it's clear that he's falling in love with Phoebe. And then Phoebe's heart skips a beat, and Prue feels that and basically encourages Phoebe to go to Cole to push the relationship into the next level, that Cole will definitely be receptive because he is falling in love with her. And Phoebe then goes to Cole's apartment, and they do, in fact, take the next step, which is physical intimacy, because as Phoebe says when she arrives, she's always been better at showing than telling. So instead of telling him that she loves him, she decides to show him that. And then we ... until the next morning, where they are then cuddling in bed and having a happy time, except then she sees the suitcase that's getting packed. Cole says that he has to leave. He's not sure when he's going to be back, that it's work related. And then at the end of the episode, Phoebe goes back to the apartment to try to find out where they stand. And as it turns out, Cole is staying because obviously his plan with Viserys fails. And so they are then able to continue their relationship. And that is another 4 points. But now it's time to go into our negatives for the episode. And we're at a full 10 points right now. So the first negative is negative messaging or behavior, which brings us down to 8 as it's worth -2 points. So there's a scene when Prue is trying to reschedule her dentist appointment because she missed the one in the morning because of Viserys. She goes in there and she feels a pinch on her bum. This pinch is empathetically felt from a consensual couple showing public displays of affection in line behind her while she's talking to the receptionist. Prue then feels that it is appropriate on her way out to double hand grab the guy's bum because she empathetically felt him squeezing his girlfriend's bum. Now, obviously, within the context of the show, this is meant to be funny, it's meant to be a joke, and it doesn't personally offend me. I found it funny, as that is what the show intended. That's the context of it. However, this is our objective ranking list. And so I can't just go based on what I feel, because that's what the personal list is for. Just objectively, you cannot be in public and just go up to a random stranger you do not know and double hand squeeze their bum. Like, that is just so violating. You don't do that. In the context of the show, like I said, it's meant to be comedy. We understand that we're not offended by it, but in reality, that would be horrible. And then he's with his girlfriend, they are seemingly in a very affectionate relationship. What is she gonna think? That this random woman decided to come up and squeeze her boyfriend's bum? Like, that could maybe lead to accusations of cheating. It could lead to less security in the relationship. It could lead to some fighting. It could lead to some jealousy. She could have ruined this very affectionate relationship because she was upset that she empathetically felt the girlfriend's bum being squeezed. But I doubt the girlfriend cared because she was in a consensual relationship that was clearly affectionate with her boyfriend just standing in line. So there are consequences to actions, and obviously this one is not a great one, which is why it's worth -2 points, bringing us to 8. And then we have our continuity error. Now, in this episode, Leo describes an empath, and an empath is somebody who did a lot of good in their life, who was then sent back down to Earth as an empath to use their gifts in order to help people. We then have the priest while talking about what he did to Viserys and losing his gift, saying that he is now facing an eternity on Earth without his gifts and his ability to help people, which is what he was sent there for. The reason I consider it a continuity error is that in the future, Phoebe develops the gift of being an empath as a witch. However, at no point is it indicated in the series that she is different from the type of empath that Leo describes, or that she is immortal as Father Thomas describes being, facing an eternity on Earth. That is never indicated that that's Phoebe. It's also indicated that empaths, similar to white lighters, are people who have died having done good things and then are sent back to Earth as empaths to do good for eternity. As Father Thomas is, like if we put the two descriptions together, that is what an empath is described as in this episode. Phoebe is not described as that later when she becomes an empath. And while there may be an argument to be made that, you know, Phoebe has empathy as a witch's power and is not an empath as in what Father Thomas is, it's never indicated either way within the series, to my recollection, at any point, and therefore to me that is a continuity error, that they may have forgot those couple of throwaway lines that they put in there on what an empath is, and just had it be a power later on, and by forgetting that, kind of screw up the rules that they had established for their own world. And that is why I decided that it was worth a -4 points, because it is a continuity error in that Phoebe is neither dead, sent back, or immortal as an empath. She just happens to have the gift develop just randomly on its own. And so, having said that, that leaves this episode as a 4 out of 10 episode objectively. Which then brings our season 3 rankings so far for our mostly objective ranking to, in first place, Honeymoon's Over, Magic Hour, All Hallowell's Eve, Once Upon a Time, Sight Unseen, and then in sixth place this episode, Primrose Empath. So now we come to the personal ranking, which of course is my opinion on the episode, and unlike the objective score, I like the episode. I think that it is one of the stronger episodes of the series. It's pretty memorable overall. It does have its problems, like it's not a perfect episode by any means, but it's very good, and it kind of sucks that it objectively didn't make a higher score, but that is why I have two lists. So first off, I really liked, that there was a little bit of relationship drama, but it wasn't major drama, so it could kind of fade into the background, showing that, like these couples are still going through, like working through their relationship, but we don't have any major issues. Phoebe and Cole take the next step in their relationship, which is reaching a milestone, which we like to see with relationships and shows. I like to track the milestones at any rate. So I was happy to see that. I also really liked, so Viserys was played by a very good looking actor, so there was that. It was nice eye candy on screen. I also liked how the empathy kind of played in, how if you weren't meant to have empathy, how it actually functions less as a gift and more like a curse. I also like how Prue was able to overcome her trouble and become this all-powerful for a moment, which, however, that also brings me to one of the things that was kind of like jarring to me. So the witch's powers come from their emotions. So Prue's telekinesis and her astral projection being enhanced, being more powerful, perfect sense. But I don't know that empathy suddenly gives you a full complement of martial arts skills. Like I don't think that that is something that the emotions is going to impact. Like when Prue comes out fighting, she's doing like like the old martial arts films where it's clear they're on a wire and they're like doing like those kicks and jumping off the walls and like doing these amazing flips and stuff. And like when she's fighting with Viserys, she's like one-handedly with one hand behind the back and the other one like blocking all his punches, and it's like martial arts skills. That is what she is displaying. That has nothing to do with her powers being enhanced, like at all. And so I'm kind of like, I'm not sure where that came from, to be honest. It's amusing, like it's a great scene because obviously it's choreographed well. You get to see all the fun flips and everything. It's a great scene. It doesn't make sense to me because the emotions are fueling her powers, strengthening her powers. Martial arts doesn't really have anything to do with her witch's powers, and she hasn't really indicated. I know Phoebe was learning martial arts, and maybe Prue picked something up along the way while helping Phoebe, maybe. But it isn't really indicated in the show up to this point that Prue is a martial artist and has a lot of martial arts skills that can be somehow enhanced by this. I mean, I guess you could say she's using telekinesis on her body physically to move herself in the air so that she can kick several times and flip around and, bounce off a wall. Maybe that's an argument, but like I don't really know how that would actually work. So, bit of a discrepancy there. A funny one, though, not one that I would think is a major loss to the show at all. And then, of course, not only does she defeat Viserys through using her astral projection, which she was practicing at the beginning of the episode. She was in the kitchen trying to use her telekinesis while in her astral mode. And I do like that after Viserys has been defeated, the empath power, which means her power boost, is gone. However, we also do see that, her and her astral self smile at each other, which I think up to this point, her and her astral self, one of them, like when the astral self was out, Prue was unconscious. And this is the first time that we're seeing them being able to both be conscious at the same time, and they share a smile before Astral Prue disappears, which I like because it shows obviously that character growth. We haven't seen yet if she's going to be able to use telekinesis while in astral mode. We know that she was practicing that at the start, and now she's conscious in both modes, so it is maybe possible, but we haven't seen that progression yet. Just that both are conscious at the same time, which is new, which I talked about under the objective ranking earlier. However, that being said, I decided that it was a good episode. It had its flaws. I decided to give it a 7 out of 10, and that brings our season 3 rankings so far on the personal ranking to in first place, Once Upon a Time, All Hallowell's Eve, Magic Hour, The Honeymoon's Over. This episode, Primrose Empath, comes in 5th, and then in 6th we have Sight Unseen. And now we come to our final segment of the video in which we are going over our series rankings so far, and this is where we are ranking each of the seasons against each other. So on our mostly objective ranking side, we have Season 2 finishing with a total score of 75%. Season 1 came in second place with 73.18%. We then have Season 3 so far, having earned 45 points out of a maximum total potential score of 220. Then our personal ranking side. We have Season 1 in first place with a total score of 71.50%. Season 2 is in second place with a total of 56.82% as its score. And then our pending Season 3 has so far earned 51 points out of 220. So with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Charmed Season 3, Episode 6, Primrose Empath. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.